You see Aidan at the races now, he's always getting people into the photograph, he's calling everybody in. God, you couldn't put a figure on it. Over 400 Group 1s, I would be sure we would have 99% of them. Unbelievable. My name is Pat Healy. I'm part of the Healy Racing Photographic Agency, and we're based here in Listowel, County Kerry. Pat Cash, I got the nickname Pat Cash. So there was a jockey back in the 80s called Cash Healy. He rode for Dr. Aidan O'Brien in Ballydale. It was the great racing trainer and commentator Ted Welsh, and I was so stylish, Ted christened me Pat Cash. So if you go racing anywhere in Ireland or England and you say, "Where's Pat Cash?" someone will point me out. I started as a very, very, very small boy. First picture I took was in 1979, 40 miles away in Askeaton, County Limerick. It just happened that this year I went back to the same pint with my son Jack, and that marked my 45th anniversary last February of taking photographs of racehorses. When you take a photograph, it takes me back to the day. I'll say, "Oh, I went racing with such and such that day," or "That happened and we stopped off there on the way home," or "We missed the flight on the way home," or "We just made the flight on the way home." Taking the photograph, it brings back the memories of the day. It's great. These days you just press a button, the machine does everything for you. It was film, it was manual. You had to know what you were doing, number one. There was no iPhones. It was great. It was negative. So we still have the negatives at home in our office. Going back to 1975, if you have a horse that won in Thurles or the Curragh or Listowel in the 70s or the 80s, the 90s, the early 90s, give me the date, I'll dig it out in negative. We were lucky at the time, there was a photographic laboratory in town called Spectra. And Spectra was owned by Xavier McAuliffe. Xavier and my dad were great friends, and he'd drive straight up to the factory. He'd drop in the rolls of film. He'd go home and go to bed. And one of our neighbours, Eileen Connor, a great woman, worked the night shift, 6:30 in the morning. She dropped the photographs in the patio door, so they were there when we got up in the morning. Rolls of film cost money, so you couldn't miss. You got 36 pictures, 37 pictures. You had to be good, because if you weren't, you were wasting money. And as we found out as young fellas, if we wasted too much, we heard about it from the boss in the office, I tell you that.
Right, boys. Aidan, you come round again first.
We have the old price list. It's gas when you look at the cost now. Commercially, a 10x8, which is the normal enlargement size, I think we're €35 for 10x8 now. And on the old price list, I think they're £1. But now it's JPEGs. Advertising agencies, people, social media, it's all JPEGs. They want the JPEG. That's what it's all about now. I suppose the first one that I would have ever saw go viral, and at the day it was pre-internet, but it was actually here, at that fence. It was the first fence in the Patsy Byrne Beginner's Chase back in 1997, and 9 horses fell. Thankfully they were all okay and all the jockeys were okay, but I happened to be standing down there, and it's just a magnificent image of chaos. Ken Whelan, Conor Dwyer, Shea Barry, Tommy Tracy, Jason Titley. But it's just chaos, it's just utter chaos. What's going through Norman's head thinking, there's maybe 10 horses coming behind me? First of all, it was on film, so that meant you had to develop it. There's a local newspaper in Tralee called Kerry's Eye, and I drove into the office in Kerry's Eye and I developed the film. That picture, the following morning, I remember all the newspapers being lined up in a line, and it was on the front page of 9 of the daily newspapers. So that for me was just, that was a wow moment, yeah. And it was being in the right spot at the right time.
What's the best horse you reckon you've seen then?
Oh, for me, See the Stars was just magnificent. He danced every dance. For 6 months, he brought us on a roller coaster.
See the Stars, the champion he is, strides to glory, further glory in the Irish Champion Stakes.
Trained by a magnificent man. I'm awful fond of John Ox, and of course he was owned by the Christopher Chai and his family, and of course the greatest flat jockey ever, Mick Kinane. They were some outfit, and it was brilliant to witness See the Stars also. I remember Aidan's first winner because I knew Aidan, and I would have come across Aidan pinting. He rode as an amateur. He was working for Jim Bulger, of course. So I knew Aidan. I photographed him in Pint of Pints, and I photographed him on the track, and I photographed him when he became a trainer. And yeah, I remember that day. I was in Tralee, which is only 20 minutes away, and Pat Gilson rode the horse, Wandering Thoughts. He wore a green jacket, I remember that. I think, looking back at it now, he was the same man that day as he is today. If you see Aidan at the races now, he's always getting people into the photograph, he's calling everybody in. I remember at the time saying, do you know what, this will be used in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. But I didn't think it was going to be used the way it's still being talked about now, and where we are now talking about it. 400 Group 1s later, unbelievable. I covered my first Breeders' Cup in Belmont in 2001 because Aidan sent over Galileo in Johannesburg. Galileo ran in the Classic. It was the first and only time I've ever been at a race course when I think there was 40 or 50,000 people in Belmont that day, and everybody in the grandstands stood up and applauded Galileo to the start. It was unbelievable. He ran in the Classic, he finished 6th, but ever since then we've covered all the Breeders' Cups. We've all Aidan's Breeders' Cup winners. I'll show you a few that I took out of Aidan this morning. That's Aidan, a young Aidan and a young Anne-Marie. Look at the little ribbon here that comes down under his helmet. Watch this, I'll show you another one. There he is riding in the race. I don't know, was he trying to set a trend at the time or what? I think horse racing has been here 300 years. Hopefully he'll be here another 300 years. And in 300 years' time, Aidan O'Brien's name will be spoken of. I'm just glad to have been there from the start. There's a young Aidan with John Magner back in 1996. So there's Aidan at Leopardstown back in 2003. Oh, I love that picture is because behind him is a young Joseph. And for me, he's looking at his dad, he's watching what's going on to become champion jockey, ride Derby winners, ride Breeders' Cup winners, numerous Group 1s as a trainer, and who's to say someday he won't be a champion trainer. Just that picture of him looking on at his dad at the races, it's a fantastic picture. There were special moments. But I think the special ones that stand out for me was, again, going back to when Joseph rode St. Nicholas Abbey to win the Breeders' Cup. That was special. The first time a father and son combined to win a Breeders' Cup race. That takes some doing.
St. Nicholas Abbey, Joey O'Brien for his father, Aidan O'Brien. History is made.
Donica, his son, Anna and Sarah, of course, photographed all them, their first winners. And of course, Anne-Marie rode winners, his wife, and we have all them. If anybody's out there and they want to commission a book, I'm your man. It was the Irish Derby meeting at the Curragh, which is the end of June. And just when I got to Laytown that day, I was going through the card and see what was running. I said, aye, keep an eye on this fella anyway. Johnny King was riding him. Just as I knew Johnny was going to take one last step and jump up on him, I stopped. And sure enough, the minute Johnny went to get up on him, he just sprang up into the air. I've never seen anything like it before, never seen anything like it since. But I was in the right place at the right time. The horse cantered away and I looked at the camera and I said, oh boys. And I sent off the image. By the time Sean and I were in the car after the last race, it had gone from Laytown to Australia to America, all over. It was gone viral. There'll be a lot of photographers I would admire around the world, Australia, England, Hong Kong, America, and the messages that I got from my colleagues, that was worth a lot. They tell me it's the land, number one, limestone land for rearing horses. From what I know, and I wouldn't know a lot about horses as specimens, but it's the people. It's the people that make the Irish horse racing the best in the world. I think the grooms, whether you're a stable groom, whether you're a stud groom, the breeders, whether you breed from one mare or you're breeding from 100 mares, all the people associated with the horse from when the horse is born, I think the way they're handled, the way they're brought up, the way they're reared, and that progresses then into the trainers and then to the guys that are riding them. And I think we have the best trainers in the world. Because if you want to survive as a trainer in Ireland, you have to know what you're doing. Simple as that.
Can we get everybody looking at the cameras? Smile, lads, you won, you know that, yeah? The sun came out, harsh light. You're trying to use a flash, you're trying not to use a flash, you're just trying to get it right. Well on. Ladies, how are you? Thanks, lads. Listen, I don't own this piece of ground. I'm trying to get a picture, but you have to be polite. I know everybody and everybody knows me. We're all friends, same clowns, different towns. You learn to poke a hole in the ditch and get a picture. Straight out, Pat, straight out. Stay there, 2 secs. Aidan, come round again once more. Quickly.
I love to see people happy.
Beautiful.
And I love to see the kids
Thanks.
getting on and grabbing success like that, because you know what it means to them and you get to witness it and photograph it, and it's brilliant.